Can't hear you.
In judiciary. So I truly appreciate you taking me remotely and with many of the same issues. We are focused on many things with AI, and we should be, from the security risks to the effects on innovation, to, of course, the potential that we have to use the technology for good. And one of the things that we are really concerned about, which is off this topic a little, but it's just to always keep in mind, as the experts that you are, is just the effect this is going to have on our democracy and our elections. And so two things. One is that Senator Hawley and Senator Collins and Senator Coons and I just introduced a bill in the last hour about deceptive AI-generated content. And that is the most extreme, right? That is the stuff where you've got people acting like they're the candidate when they're not, which is going to, or AI-generated images acting like they're candidate when they're not, which is going to create complete confusion, regardless of whether it's labeled or not. And I thought it was really important to do this on a bipartisan basis. So I hope my colleagues will. You can't get much more bipartisan than Hawley and Collins and Klobuchar and Coons. And so I hope that my colleagues will look at this. It's about fraudulent AI-generated content in political ads. The second thing that we're looking at for another class of AI-generated political ads would be disclaimers and watermarks and the like for the ones that don't meet the standard for the most extreme deceptive, with, of course, exceptions for satire, because we all like a lot of satire around here. Okay, so I'm going to just ask you about the watermark piece, because we just introduced the other bill, the disclosure piece. Mr. Gregory, Dr. Krishnan, do you agree that without giving people information to determine whether an image or video is created by AI, that generative AI poses a risk to our ability to hold free and fair elections?
The evidence already suggests that this is a problem both in the US and globally, given the capacities of these tools. So yes, I also believe that election content is a first place where it is possible to start with both visible disclosure and particularly indirect disclosure, i.e. labeling a piece of content and also providing metadata that could explain it. The key part would be to protect the capacity for satire. As you note, that is essential to protect. Yes.
Okay, well, I really do appreciate that answer, and also the timeliness of it, given that we're in election season. We've already seen the use of this against some of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, and so people are very aware. I think it also, by the way, extends, and I'll get your answer, Dr. Krishnan, in writing, if that's okay, because I want to move on to another question. I wanted to move into the AI risk assessment and mitigation issue. We know that these systems have the potential to impact individuals in many key areas, especially if it evaluates rental insurance applications. I'm working with Senator Thune on a bill to require companies that develop and use AI to identify risks and implement procedures to mitigate risks. This involves Department of Commerce oversight. Ms. Espinal, do you agree that both developers and deployers of AI systems bear responsibility to mitigate risk before they release the AI on the market?
I believe that both developers and deployers, users of AI, should have obligations. I believe they both have responsibility. I would emphasize that I think the obligations that are put on them should differ so that it reflects what they do. So a developer of AI is going to have information about how the data that was used and how the AI was trained. To use an example of a deployer, a bank is going to have information about how loans were actually made and whether or not loans were made in a way that was disproportionately negatively impacted a part of the community. So 100% I agree with you, and thank you for thinking about the distinction between developers and deployers, the fact that both should have obligations and that those obligations and requirements should reflect what they do, the information that they're going to have about the AI system in question, and the different steps that each can and should take to identify and mitigate risk.
Thank you. We've also seen intellectual property issues with AI, songs and the like, copyrights. Only around half the states have laws that give individuals control over the use of their name, image, and voice. Do you agree, Ms. Espinel, that we need stronger protections for the image, likeness, and voices of creators?
So I know there have been instances where there's been AI-generated information or content that has pretended to be someone that it wasn't. That is clearly wrong and should be stopped. I think thinking about right of publicity, as you point out, that is not something that exists consistently throughout the United States. And so I think thinking about solutions to that problem, which is clearly wrong and needs to be addressed, is very important.
And just one quick other question of you, Mr. Gregory. In addition to some of the copyright issues we're talking about, we also have journalism issues, and we have Senator Kennedy and I have a bill that allows the companies to the companies to have to negotiate with news organizations on the issue of their content. And in addition to newspapers, AI systems were trained on other content like lifestyle magazines, most of which were not compensated for that content. Do you agree, Mr. Gregory, that there is more we need to do to ensure that content creators are fairly compensated for their contributions to AI models?
Yes, I think there needs to be stronger ways to understand which content is being ingested into AI models and the decisions that are made around that. And I would particularly highlight that journalists already face significant pressures, including, of course, that they are unable to detect AI-generated media. So they face pressures both that their content is ingested and also that they are on the front lines of defending the truth in the context we face now.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, all of you. And thank you to the chairman, ranking member, for having this hearing.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate that. We don't have the next